Do you then think that the ANC has failed its people?
We have to educate the Gogo that there is no African National Congress of Nelson Mandela anymore.
No.
It's changed.
It's gone.
Okay, so when you go to vote, Gogo, you're not voting for Nelson Mandela. Hasaliu. He's not there anymore. Number 2, when the political party does not serve you, get them out.
Radio isn't just background noise. It's conversation, it's perspective, it's the stories we tell ourselves about who we are. And in South Africa, few voices hold that space with as much clarity and composure as Faith Mangope. Whether she's navigating difficult conversations or holding space for everyday South Africans to be heard, she reminds us that how we speak shapes how we understand. Faith, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for being Be Frank with MacG.
Oh, thank you very much for having me. What an honor to be in your company. My first podcast.
Ever? First podcast
No,
ever?
of the year.
Of the year.
My
of the
first
year.
podcast
Okay.
of the year. So
Okay.
I'm very excited to be
No,
having
we're happy to start the year with you. So I'm going to ask a very, very simple question, right? You've worked in newsrooms, you've worked on radio stations. What does it feel like for you? Has this made you a more patient person? Has this made you a more understanding person? Or has it darkened your life, working in this space and constantly having to deal with news?
I think it's given me a sense of urgency. I think that it's difficult to report and to speak of the stories without actually or without asking the fundamental question of, now that I've given you the news, now what? Now that we've unpacked the problem, now what? Now that we've shed light on the hunger or the strikes in Alexandra or the non-electricity or the zamazamas that are, taking away from us through the help of those who are in high positions of power and politics. Now what? Now that I've given you the news, now what? And I think the truth of the matter is, at least for me, it's difficult to report on the news without wanting to make a change or without wanting to contribute at least to some aspect of change. I think it's easy for us to become critical. I think it's easy for us to report and the fundamental...
To be on our soapboxes, right?
Exactly.
To be on our soapboxes, yes.
And the foundation of being in the news, of being a journalist, right, is not to become the story, right? We are there to talk about the story. We are there to tell the story. We are not there to become the story. But how do you live in a country where you're consistently telling of stories of doom, death, and destruction and not want to be part of the solution to the story? Or not want to at least do something about the story that you see? So I'm one of those Hi, my name is Faith Mangope. I'm the South African that got very tired of just talking about the story, to a point now we have to ask ourselves the question, now that I've told you the story, now what?
Because that's the thing for me, right? Especially with the kind of work that we do, right? We are not the police. We are not the courts,
No.
right? And everything and anything that we always expose just ends there with the expose. Back to exactly what you're saying. Now what? And for me, that's tiring. I feel like we're wasting our time then, right?
Yeah, and I mean, it's a... And again, we're living in a world where the news gets turned out so much. You and I were having a conversation before we started that it's not just about our local news, which in itself is enough to drive anybody crazy.
Of course.
It's also about our geopolitical landscape. It's also about our international news. It's also about how watching the world, or the parts of the world that gets the media attention, being told to the rest of us and emitting a certain frequency that keeps us all in absolute states of panic and anxiety and not feeling as though there's hope at the end of the tunnel. So it's and once you're in that loop, right? Because it's easy for that loop to get you depressed.
Yes.
It really is. It's very easy to get depressed within that loop. It's easy for us to live in that loop and have to shut down or to ignore the loop, right? We can either ignore it and say, my life and me and my 4 and no more are very comfortable where we are right now, and we're not going to engage in this. Or we can decide, okay, this is depressing me. Or we can decide, okay, cool. So now what we do about it, right? There's nothing that I can't stand more than people who criticize without a solution. It irks me to my absolute core. If you're going to criticize this country, what are you doing about it?
What's your solution? Right?
What's your solution to it? Right? And that's the premise of where I come from. I became a story. I realize where the education of young people is taking this country. I realize that we're going to struggle if we don't address youth unemployment and address it critically.
Yes.
I realize that the next particular battle in South Africa is going to be against the haves versus the have-nots. And when the haves go back, or the haves showcase what they have and the have-nots realize they want what the haves have got, it's not going to be about color. The battle of haves and have-nots is not about color, it's about class.
And we saw that, right? We saw that the uprisings that happened, the looting,
In July
right?
2021.
July 2021, right? Yeah. And you'll know in our work, we'll often get an opportunity to go speak somewhere or whatever, the world that we see through our eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And, I said to them that, we can all sit behind our high fences, right? And our walls and our dogs and our security guards, right? But when the people have finished with the Pick n Pays, the Woolworths, the ShopRites, the Checkers, the Tuck shops, the spaza shops of this world, we're next. We're next. And it won't be black or white, as you're saying. It won't be about color. It'll be about the haves and the have-nots. So if we don't make an, effort to change our country, to make a difference, to create employment, we are next because we're the ones that have and they don't.
And again, it goes into also the level of our consciousness, right? Mac, it's not normal. And I change position consciously when I have this conversation because I don't understand why many South Africans, black, white, Indian, colored, are not driven to a sense of urgency about this. It's not normal that 62% of young people in this country, if you're looking at the expanded rate of unemployment, which sometimes now we're trying to hide, of course, because we're not looking at the expanded. We're saying that those who have given up looking for jobs, we don't count them in the stats anymore, right? So it's not normal that 62% of young people in this country are unemployed. It's not normal. It's not normal. It's not right. It's unconscionable. It is actually evil. If you have to ask me, what is the definition of evil? The future of the Republic of South Africa, 62% of them have got no job. They wake up in the morning on Monday and they've got nowhere else to go. And just because we have got some kind of a salary that gets into our account, that we're able to live in a nice place and drive one car or have two cars and have maybe two kids in private school and we're able to go on holiday maybe twice a year, we're okay, right? It's not normal. And when we realize, and when we finally get to the tipping point, because it's going to tip, you cannot have a society. We're going there. You can't have a society where 62% of young people are unemployed and think that they're going to wake up one day and they're going to sing, Hail Mary. It's not going to happen. It's not a kumbaya moment. The whole South Africa, we love you moment was in 1994. It's done.
That's it.
We're not going to have that again. And again, it's not normal that we have not redistributed land appropriate. It's not normal. It's not normal that after democracy, we have got white minorities that still benefit from apartheid in a country with a black majority.
And still protect and fight about it.
And you know what, Mac? What makes me even more mad is that they're not protected by just whites. They're protected by blacks. Black politicians are protecting white privilege. And you can quote me, black politicians are protecting white privilege. That is not normal. It doesn't make sense. You cannot have democracy without economic justice.
Do you then think that the ANC has failed its people? Because they're the liberators, right?
Yeah.
There's a time when they had the 2/3 majority.
Yeah.
They put in policies. They could have changed the constitution. They could have changed policies. They could have made sure that we're not where we are here. So you are right. They've allowed for it. They've protected it. And now it's too late.
I think that the African National Congress needs to take a deep look at what they've been given and what they chose to give away. They were given the trust of the majority of this country. They were given. When my parents went to vote, my mother's first ID copy she obtained was an ID copy to make sure that she went to go and vote, right? Our fathers, my father had to be taken out of a hospital because the apartheid police were looking for him. And that's the story of many of our parents, right? Some of our parents don't know where their siblings are buried because the apartheid police made sure that that never happened, right? And when 1994 happened and the country was given and the black, even Indian and colored, right, majority said, here's the country. let's steer it into the direction of true prosperity. What did you do with the vote? I also have to be fair to the African National Congress, because you're not Jesus. You're not going to solve the world's problem in a day, right? You're not. There are certain
you can't
issues.
change 300 years.
You can't change 300 years of colonialism and apartheid in just 30 years. I think that is also something that we need to acknowledge. But within the limited time that you have, don't steal from the people. Within the time frame that you've got, don't steal. Don't end up at the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry. Don't end up in spaces where you're looking at the Zondo Commission of Inquiry. Don't end up at the Zondo Commission of Inquiry. Let me not hear that you were receiving frozen chicken. Like, it's not the time, right? It's not the time. Let me not hear that there was a conversation around frozen chicken. Let me not hear that there were conversations...
Or BBLs, for that matter.
or buildings that were leased out by, SAPS or SAPS buildings that were supposed to be there, and the contract was just done irregularly. Let me not hear that, because you were given the country, and the majority of this country said, let's lead us to a better place. But again, it goes back to how we negotiated. How did we negotiate this democracy? And if we look at how we negotiated this democracy, what we also have to pay into mind is that this wonderful constitution that we speak of is supposed to be a living document. And I don't know if many people know that. The constitution is a living, breathing document. In other words, Mac, if it doesn't serve us any longer, we should be able to amend the constitution, because it is alive. It is a breathing document. But we've treated the constitution like it is a dead document, like it is a Bible that can't be changed.
Well, it's just some paper that's there, right? 100%. We're not living up to its principles.
Right. And then again, Mac, who wrote the constitution? And what was the benefit of writing the constitution? Because if you read the constitution, right, South Africa, there are aspects of the constitution that you go, okay, this is great.
We the people.
Right. But where are we in this constitution? Do the people govern? Do the people feel empowered? Do the people have economic justice? Because if you have to ask me, under the constitution, the people that were rich under apartheid are still rich under democracy, under the constitution. So who was the constitution written for? Who was the constitution supposed to protect, at the expense of whom? So, number one, we have not changed this constitution, or we're slow to amend aspects of the constitution that never served. Why is that?
Oh, but even the process is onerous, right? It could take 2, 3, 5 years to change things that we can clearly see are not working for us, right? It's like, what are you even arguing?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? What are you even arguing in Parliament when you can see this is not working? The land issue, for example, we can see the way in which it's been done is not right. Find a different way. Give people land. Give them means of production. It's that simple.
Again, but then if you are protecting, and it's good, because if you're protecting the interests of those who put you in power, or if you're protecting the interests of those who promised you some kind of benefit to that power, then you are in a place where you're going to protect even what does not serve the majority of this country in the first place. I was speaking to somebody who worked with one of the directors of the Nelson Mandela Foundation, who actually worked very closely with the late former President Nelson Mandela. And he said, the sad part is we have to look at the genesis of this democracy in order for us to understand why it is that it's struggling to work. And you have to look at who was infiltrated when, and who was promised what during the time that South Africa was transitioning into this democracy. How many of us were promised you will get to become, these equity, or this amount of equity will be given to you. You will be the project. You will be the project. How many projects does South Africa have that allowed for a few to get rich? And I'm talking about Black people or non-white people, that allowed for a few to get rich and the majority to stay poor. How many projects did we have? How much equity was given? Which companies were giving people equity, and when? How come? And you have to look back at how things were negotiated in order for us to understand why is it that we still have privilege that is protected by our same Black politicians today.
So this is how the interview is actually going to start. What does a normal morning look like for you?
I feel like, goodness me.
Let's take it back to the beginning. How do you describe a normal morning?
It's so sad. I've become worse. So I have an evening show, obviously, with the Metro FM Talk, and which means that I get home at about 9:30 or so. And because of the type of content that we handle, I struggle to switch off. And I don't know about you. When you're doing stories, you're on adrenaline, right?
Yes.
Your mind is consistently working because of the type of content you're consuming. So sometimes I find myself going to bed at about 12 midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning.
Yes.
I know that for example, last night I went to bed at 1 a.m. Not because I didn't want to sleep, but because my brain is running, right?
Yes.
So I wake up in the morning.
Because of the things you hear, right? Because sometimes you're like, what?
Yeah, I have to shut down. I have to actually I actually have to, find a way of shutting down. And when I wake up the next morning, and it's so fun. It's a bad habit, but the first thing I do, I look at my phone to find out what's going on in the world. It's such a bad habit, and I do admit it. I look at what's going on in the world, and then I go downstairs, make a cup of coffee, come back up, continue, look at work. And then, of course, a lot of my morning into the afternoon is consumed by the Technology and Leadership Institute that I founded in 2019.
Fantastic. Wow.
So that has been...
So what do you do there before you even forget?
So I'm the founder of the Faith Mangope Technology and Leadership Institute. We founded it on the 8th of August. We are a skills development institution that trains young people 18 to 30 in data analytics, software development, artificial intelligence, as well as cloud computing. Not only do we train them, they write international certifications, and upon completion of our 12-month program, we place them in jobs. Now, here's the part that you don't hear often. We place them in jobs.
Busy Faith.
Hey, we've been educating over 100 young people a year.
Wow, that's incredible.
And so our young people work for First National Bank. A lot of the banks want our young people. And can I just say that they also get absorbed. We're not just talking about internships here. We're talking about absorption. PwC, for example, which has taken in about 14 or 15 of our candidates, full permanent. So they come from our institution. We place them in those spaces. And we give young people an opportunity to at least be autonomous in this country. And so I work with that. So we train in soft skills and as well as technical skills, or I've been told now power skills and technical skills. And then we place them because it's important for you to have a job at the end of the day. So if you want to ask me, Faith, you talk so passionately about the country, but what are you doing for the country? I'm creating jobs for young people and I'm placing young people in jobs. What are you doing for the country?
And jobs that add value, right?
Yeah.
Because you're not teaching them how to sew, how to knit.
No.
You're giving them world skills, right?
Yes.
Because, I mean, if you spoke to someone 10, 15 years ago and you asked them, that you're a data analyst or you're a social media manager, they would have never understood it, right? They would have never understood what you're talking about. And these are skills, these are future skills. Data analytics, AI, and teaching them how to use the computer as a tool for them to be able to get themselves educated. It's a skill that we aren't doing at schools. You go to schools, like a blackboard, right? I do stuff with the Nelson Mandela Foundation, Ride for Hope. And it's mad. We cycle from Joburg, sometimes from Joburg to KZN or from KZN back. We do about 400 kilometers over a 4-day period. And to this day, there's principals and teachers that cry tears because it's the first time they have a computer in their school, right? And those kids must now face off Chinese children, American children, children from Europe, who literally grew up with a computer in their hand. You know what I mean? So already that gap that our kids have, I mean, as I'm saying to you, that there's principals that cry tears because it's the first time they're seeing a computer at a high school.
Yeah, and these are the realities that we're living with. So for example, now have a kid that comes in from that high school. They come into our institute, and may I just say, we also educate our young people for free.
Yes.
So they don't pay for the schooling, right? We're not charging for them to be there. We just want kids that are dedicated and that are not going to waste our time because it's money. There's a lot of money that is put in place. We give them laptops, we give them a stipend as well, and then we place them at the end. So there's a lot that goes into it. But imagine a kid that comes in from rural KwaZulu-Natal and they want to come into our institute. We have to start from scratch and then find a way. After them coming through us, we have to then place them in a job and make sure that these individuals are able to critically analyze the world and work in environments where you're not just working with the MacG from South Africa, you're working with somebody in China because we are now in a global community and a lot of these companies are international organizations. So it's been one where it's one of the most fulfilling. It's rewarding to see the change, but it is difficult as well because you're going up against the grain, and when you change, it's exactly what you're doing, right? So when you're in the course of change or changing the way things are, it's not easy. It's easy for you not to care. Can I tell you, the easiest thing for any human being to do is not to care. Because then you don't have to cycle.
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
then
why
you're
were you doing
nonchalant.
this?
You're living in your nice house, walking your
Yes.
dogs.
Camps Bay. Oh, don't even get me started about the Western. But anyways, you're living in Camps Bay. You have like a little doggy walks. You go to the restaurant or the coffee shop, down the road. And then poverty, you see it on TV and then you move on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the interaction that you have. So does this mean with all of the stuff that you're doing, do you have a structured home, like organized, Baba organized? Everything happens at a specific time. I know that 9 o'clock I must go down for my coffee. 10 o'clock I must do this. Do you have a structured home, or is it absolute chaos? How do you live?
No, I don't have I think I do like structure to a point. I'm not rigid, right? I don't like being rigid. I think that there's room for fun. The only thing I'm going to say is that because there's so much going on in my mind, my house has got white walls and I've got white couches. And I don't share that often.
Yes,
I really don't. I don't have paintings on my wall.
Yes.
Right? My house has got white walls and white couches. Everywhere you go in my house, it's actually quite a joke. Even my bean bags. I bought bean bags and I couldn't have bean bags of color in my house. I needed my bean bags to be cream. So I've got cream bean bags with a white wall and cream couches, and I've got dogs too. Okay. So you can understand how that
the
is
two that don't work out. White couches, dogs.
Yes, so you can understand, So then, but because my mind is always occupied, I need a space where it just goes. So I've got candles and I've got, flowers. Flowers make me very happy. Thank you for your flowers. They make me very happy. Yes. So I've got like candles. I try to have a place that is calm, and a place that is loving, and a place that is good. And I mean, I have outlets as well. I love cooking. When I can, I do. I love cooking. I love.
So is that how you switch off? You'd say then to get away from the madness of the day, right?
Yeah, I switch off and I cook, and I have fun. I have family over. My family never leaves my house. I've always got family over. They never leave my house. I've always got family over, and I really am. I'd like to think that I'm pretty down to earth when I'm not working, and I'm pretty down to earth when I'm in my space of recovery. But I'm also an introvert. Like I'm an introverted. People that are in media have often been described as introverted extroverts.
Yes.
Right? We find our energy by being alone because we need to recharge, because we're always pouring out.
Yes. Our cup also needs to get filled. Yes.
That's it. Us being in spaces where we communicate with people is a constant outpouring and it's taxing emotionally too. So I do find a lot of space when I'm inside and I'm cooped up with just, in a space of love and comfort and safety. And it allows me to do that. I'm also shy when I'm not working, right? Yes. So I'm not the person that you take to a party and I'm going to be there kosekeling.
I'll get down, Nyana.
No, I will get down.
How low can you go,
No,
Nyana?
I can do that, but I'm not going to be. But I'm not going to be in the circle. I'm going to be like the one outside of the circle.
Watching.
I'm the one, but because I also get shy, right? Because again, our job is to be front row and center, right? And when you're not in that space...
Well, you've constantly got to show up, right? You've constantly got to show up. And
exactly.
I mean, I remember when I used to drive, when I used to fetch my daughter from school. She'd get in the car and she wants to play music. And I'm like, Wanak, can you please just have silence? Because I mean, especially in radio, right? It's music, it's this. You're talking to people and you've constantly have got to have this energy. Yes. When you get into your home or you get into your car, but then nix, right? And I think that's also important because of the information we get and what we deal with. Because a lot of the time, we don't realize the impact that it has on us. Because it does have an impact, right?
Yeah, it does. And it's got and how can it not? We're humans, right? We're energy beings. And through the news that gets transmitted, there's an energy, there's a frequency, right? And I know I sound like, spiritual, but, right? But it's the truth, right?
Yes.
This is a metaphysical universe, right? As much as there's physicality in it, there are some aspects of it, there's spiritual aspects of it that inform the way that we are, right? Life is bigger than the physical. And because life is bigger than the physical, the energy that gets transmitted with every single bad news, it's a low frequency energy.
Yes.
Right? It's low frequency. That's why you find that people are in dreary places, right? It's low frequency. That's why you find that places, for example, that are, let's say, completely densely populated, spaces where it's informal settlements, for example, densely populated, places where there's no service delivery. What's the frequency when you go into that place? You often feel like you're
Yes.
even when you're driving past, your frequency
heavy.
goes low because we are frequency people. We are vibrational people, right? We are made of water, number one, right? Our being is made of water. And because our being is made of water, we're able to align with frequency. We move. That's why we move with the lunar cycles as well. Woman, we know this. We move with the moon as well, right? Because we are water. We are beings, right? And when you're in spaces where it's low frequency, or you're emitting news of low frequency, it's got a way of trapping people in a certain loop and in a certain space and in a certain little fragment, right? Yes. And when you're trapped in those kind of portals, it's difficult for you to see hope. It's difficult for you to create. It's difficult to come up with solutions. And I often wonder, could it also be why? Could it also be why that we're struggling to find real tangible solutions for this country? Because a lot of our people have lulled themselves at such a frequency of or low frequency that we're not in spaces of creation and creativity. So we always have to be mindful. And when we are in that frequency, we have to ask ourselves, how do we get out of that frequency? So I do find myself in that frequency, but I have to get myself out of the frequency so I can be in a space of creation instead of in a space of, dull.
You mentioned something. Being a Muslim, I know, we have to wake up in the crazy hours of the morning so that we can be able to go pray, right? Mm-hmm. It's the first thing that I do. I say that's the first conversation that I have is with God. Mm-hmm. Then nothing else can stand in my way. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But I was saying this to Majita Kokas, right? To say, gents, you've got to change the way that you live your life, right? Nahana, what happens in the township, right? More often than not, weekend ke mafu. I see the mafu, ke the unveiling, right? I see the unveiling who are mabitleng, right? And those are the activities, more often than not, that you engage in, weekend out, right? Lefu, darkness, mabitla, death, right? Lahlaba, wetsalang, hunwa jwala, right? Constantly every weekend. How are you expecting positivity out of your life, right? Because you can't constantly be in those environments every day and expect prosperity. You're surrounding yourself with darkness weekend in, weekend out, right? Right? And then you expect that you must start seeing positivity in your life. It doesn't work that way. And I know it's a bad example to make. Why do you think as often as possible, Mahua always go on holiday? The minute you go on holiday, you're sitting at the Kruger, you feel like there's this weight that's been removed. Or when you're in the ocean, right? When you're at sea, you feel like this weight has been removed, like so different. And say that is the fundamental difference between us and them sometimes, because we're constantly surrounding ourselves with darkness.
Well, white people created those spaces intentionally, right? So, and I say this, and I've got a white fiance, so it's white soon-to-be husband, right? And he's exposed me to a very, very different way of being able to channel your frequency. Yes. But let's tackle the issue of the frequency of kokas, for example. And I learned this. We've had different experts that were coming to the show. The township was never created to be a place of prosperity.
It's apartheid special planning, guys.
Thank you.
Simple.
Apartheid special planning. The white Afrikaners or the oppressors never created the township for you to prosper. It was a place for you to go and get some sleep so that you can come back and work in the mines.
For them.
Right, yes. For them. In fact, somebody that I once interviewed described this township as a concentration camp. He said it's actually a concentration camp. It was a place where you go and put your head down for a little bit so that you can come to work for them in the morning. Have you ever wondered, just the basics, why are there no trees in the township? Because carbon monoxide was supposed to be emitted through, what is it called? Our gas, the way that we put in Dimbaula, right? Yes, we've got the way of heating, right? What gets emitted through the way that we heated? Carbon monoxide, right? It was nothing that was, so where does that get caught? When we do normal, right? Carbon monoxide, where does it get caught up? In trees. Yes, trees, the township does not have trees. Why is that? Compare the township to Hyde Park.
Of course.
The townships don't have trees, but the townships do have a tavern, a church, and a school. A tavern, a church, and the school. So you send the kids to the school, you send the men to the tavern, you send the women to the church. And what is that to do? And I'm not criticizing education. I'm in the space of education. Yeah. But the tavern is made to keep you lull. And this is coming from somebody who, and again, the tavern, let's tackle the tavern.
Yes, because it's a construct.
It's a construct. Yes. Who constructed it? White oppressors. They gave you a tavern. Tavern is not even a concept more high. A tavern is actually something that comes in from far away. It's an actual European.
Yeah, it comes from the UK.
Tavern
Yes.
comes from the UK.
Yes.
It's not African. A tavern is not African. A tavern was created, back to alcohol, was to make sure that slaves were malleable. Slaves were given alcohol to make sure that they are malleable, so that you can move them around and transport them. That's why even in the agricultural sector, in the farms, what is it? The dope system is still a very functional system. What does a dope system do? Keep you so lull that you're able to work for the master continuously because you're dependent on this dope. So the tavern was created to ensure that you remain lull. Alcohol in itself, being drunk, and I'm not saying don't enjoy a glass of wine, but alcohol in itself was created so that you stay in a state of lullness, so that you are malleable to the oppressors. The church, right? And I'm saying this as a Christian girl, right? I'm saying this as a Christian girl.
Yes.
The church was brought in so that they can keep the black person in a state of obedience and submission. Submission to the pastor or the priest, submission to the church. The church was brought in by missionaries to South Africa. It was part of the slave trade. It was part of oppression.
Yes.
The church was not there to liberate the black man. The church was brought in to keep the black man in a state of obedience to the white man. That's why the church was brought in. That's why even in some churches, whether you're looking at the previous NG Kerk or the previous church, oppression, right? The term kafir, right? The term non-believer, was perpetuated in the church. So what happened with the church in the Afrikaner churches? They would tell the people who attended church, the Afrikaner oppressors, that what you're doing is actually serving God because you are getting rid of these kafirs. These kafirs need to be kept away because they are against the word of God. That's why apartheid was infiltrated through the church. Right? Apartheid teachings were infiltrated through the church. Apartheid was infiltrated through the church. Oppression was an instrument that was used in the church. Now, the same people who used oppression in the church, you expect to be the same people who are going to give you the Bible and say, you know what, guys? This is going to make you prosperous. And I say this as somebody, yes, I do love going to church, but I think that we also need to be able to critically think and critically ask the questions, why?
You know, I've always asked her, I so bone mewa lekgoa a kentse uniform.
No.
I've never seen white people dressed like this.
No, they don't.
Wang understand? So now rona tshwantse re kenye uniform bo mmele bo ntate ba wesele, they dressed in this uniform so that they can go obey their master at the church. And I've said, like, I've never ever seen, and throughout the world, unless it's obviously the big sort of, processions and the big days, then they'll wear some semblance of uniform, but they don't. Why a uniform? And they're taken there so that they can, almost get indoctrinated.
And again, we have to look at why was it brought in, right? And there's a saying which I love, that when the missionaries came over to Africa, they said to the black man, let's pray. The black man who had land, let's pray. And by the time the prayer ended, the black man had the Bible and the white man had the land. I love that saying because it's true. We said amen, but we lost the land in our amen. There is nothing wrong with the way that we worshipped. Black people, by the way, and I actually listened to that a long time, that black melanin, our people of color, have always been spiritually aware. Always. There's something... There is something, and I mean, Africa is the beginning of civilization or humanity. So we are in the epicenter of it.
What's working? I spoke to my mother, and because she's also like heavy Christian, prayer warrior, what, mama. And she's also, an African languages and culture practitioner, right? So very good at church, also very educated. Before Mahwa fitla,
what were we praying to?
Who are we praying to? No, ditapelo tsa teng tlatla macholo. What and say. So why aren't we praying that way? Why aren't we praying the way that we used to pray? And how when I would say by the truth about how we pray, because even the way that we do the months, etc., etc., etc. So why? And it's also because it hasn't been documented, Wanak. We have not documented it. And as a result, there's no point of reference that we can take people to get about. Mama, it's your guys' responsibility, right? I am a Muslim, right? I'm a Muslim. So I know what prayer does and how it helps. Because if really it worked, why are people still like this?
And again, I mean, and I say this because I believe in God, right? I do. There's something, you just have to look at our hands and understand that there is a God. You just have to look at your life and understand that the existence of God is there, and God is love, and God is everywhere, and God is beautiful, and God is pure, and God wants the best of us. I think what we did was we took the focus away from God and we gave the focus to the priest. So,
Pastors.
right, we took the focus away from God and we gave it to the priest. I think our people have always had relationship with God. I think our people have always worshipped God. I think our people have always seen the benefits of the living God. The God of the Black people have always been living. It's the same reason why I don't understand why do we pray to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, which is ancestors. And yet when we pray to the God of Nomzamo, who is me, and Nomzamo's grandmother, and Nomzamo, we are seen as demonic. Why is it that when I mention my ancestors, it's demonic, but we must pray to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? When the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob is actually ancestors, we're reciting an ancestral line. We are reciting an ancestral line. My ancestors too were godly people. My ancestors too were loved by God. My ancestors too had their prayers answered. My prayers get answered by God. Mac, I pray. And I pray so confidently knowing that God answers my prayer. God answers my prayer, right? But I also pray understanding that the God that was brought in by missionaries, right, was not the God that was the liberator of the Black people.
No.
That was a God that was there to oppress the Black people.
Yes.
And I think religion, right? I do believe we're all just trying to reach out to God. That's why I don't.
But we're all trying to find some sort of moral compass,
yes,
right?
Yes, we are. And I respect it because, and again, I say this as a Christian girl. But what we have to understand, we're all just trying to figure it out. No one is holier than anybody here. We're all just trying to figure it out. And so when you understand that we're all just trying to figure it out, you also start critically thinking about certain passages that go, hang on a second, man. Like, there's nothing wrong with my ancestors. Hang on a second, man. Why is it that the oppression or the measures of oppression was perpetuated in the church? Hang on a second then. Isn't it funny how in townships, you've got churches and prophetic ministries? If you have to look at the townships, so much, you'll see a billboard of Prophet Mang.
Yes.
A billboard of Prophet Mang in the town, in the poor areas. I come to Hyde Park. Here in Hyde Park, I've not seen have you seen a billboard of Prophet whoever?
Nix.
I don't see a billboard of Prophet whoever or prophetess. But go to the township, I will see a billboard of prophet and prophetess. But here in Hyde Park, I don't. The wealthy are here. So who needs to get the message actually, right?
Right.
Who needs to get the message actually here? So I don't understand why is it that in certain areas there's Prophet Mang and they're on a billboard, but in certain areas that are impoverished, there's prophetess, and why can't we get those people out of the poverty then? Why aren't we able to get those people? If it really works, let's get those people out of the poverty.
Yes, let's see the changes that it brings,
Let's see the changes, right?
Yes.
Let's see the changes. Not the pastor becoming wealthy at the expense of the congregation. Let's see the actual changes, right? So, but then that's another story about how is it that, churches are not taxed. I don't get it. I don't get, or at least if they're not taxed, open up your book so that we see that you're not flying on a private jet, that actually your money is going to something that is worth it. And again, I say this as a Christian girl. I go to church. I do. I love the messages. But I know I'm also the same person that when the pastor does not make sense, I go, hang on a second. Actually, no. You're not speaking something that is truth here. Because we all have a soul. We all have a spirit. And you know what? We all have the spirit of discernment. Yes. The spirit is eternal. The soul man is eternal. The soul man has got the direct link to God. The soul man does not need an intermediary. You don't.
You don't.
Because God is here. Me, I speak to my God, right? Yes, I love Jesus, but trust you me, I've got to relate. My God, I speak to my God. The soul understands. So if I've got a direct connection, I don't need. So if I don't need, if I don't need all of this, why am I? And again, it takes away our power of creation. If we're created in the image of God, and now this is starting to sound very religious, but if we're created in the image of God, right, then I must be able to do what God did, which is create too.
Yes.
If I'm created in the image of God, it means that I've got the power of creation. It means that the power of being able to manifest. Your life must be a living proof of the manifestation of God in you, because you are God and God is you.
Yes.
Right? So you are the manifestation of God. And what that means is that it puts humanity at an empowered state. Human beings have got more power than what we can realize. Human beings were able to create the pyramids. We should be seeing more pyramids today, but we're not. Human beings were able to create streets of gold. We're supposed to be more united. We're supposed to be manifestations because we're in the image of God. But human beings seem to be traveling at a frequency that is lower than being in their God state. Why is that? Because human beings were told that they are nothing. They are nothing without an intermediary, whether it's a priest, a pastor, confession, whatever it is, you are nothing without that. So human beings don't know that they are God and God is them, and they are the reflection of God and God lives in them as they live in God. We've missed it.
We've missed it.
We've missed
it. We've missed it, and it's so painful to see how people have taken that power of manifestation and handed it over to somebody else. Right? They've taken and given somebody else the power who's using that power of theirs to enrich themselves, right? Who's using that power to keep them in this constant loop of hopelessness where they're supposed to actually be finding hope. They feel our people go to church on a Sunday hoping that they're going to come back with something, and more often than not, they come back with nothing. Yet the power is actually with them. That direct connection, that direct link with God is actually there. And if they were able to harness that, they would see his work through their lives. But okay, you said we're not here to speak about it.
I'm a spiritual person, I'm spirit as much as I'm physical.
Yeah. So you could have been a diplomat or an HR manager, right? Those were your first ambitions. That HR or writing sick leave. What's going on? Hey, how did that all evolve to who Faith is now?
I think that I would have been a terrible HR manager. Awful. I'm not like, no, I don't want to do it. But yes. I think my life changed when I was I was doing second year at Wits University, and my international relations lecture got cancelled that day. And at the time, we had Prime Media Broadcasting that loved, and I think it still does, Prime Media, that loved going to the to Wits and places like Wits and basically do like a bit of a scouting and also showcase.
Okay.
So at that particular day, and on that day, my international relations lecture got cancelled. One of my best friends, Angela Lowe, wanted to be in radio.
Okay.
And so he said to me, babe, Prime Media is here. They're holding auditions. Please, can you come with me? And he's like, you don't have anything to do. Your lecture got cancelled.
Yeah.
I said, you know what, Angelo? Okay, I'm not doing anything to do. My lecture got cancelled. Yeah. It's cool. And we went in and we stood in the queue, and he stood in front of me, and he went in and he came out. I was like, how was it, friend? And he goes, oh, it was like really cool. I think it was cool. When I walked in, when you walk in, and I walked in and I felt like I wanted this. And I'd never been exposed to radio.
Yes.
Remember, my career, according to me as a 20-year-old, I was 20 at the time, was chosen already. I mean, I knew what I wanted to do with my life. And I walked in and I thought, I want this. And at the time, the station manager, Piladi Gwangwa, gave me a traffic report to read. And I read it, and she looked at me and she said, would you, do you want to work? And I said, yes. I mean, at the time I was in a space where, both of my parents were unemployed, and it was a struggle at home. It was a big struggle at home. And I said, work? Yes, of course. She said, would you mind working on weekends? And I said, I will work.
Hey, Bona.
My man, the problems of work. I will work. And I didn't take it. I mean, she said, okay, cool, we'll be in touch. And I just thought, that's it. Okay, we'll be in touch. And that was like close to the end of the year in that second year. See, I don't even remember when second year was for me. 2006, I think it was 2006. It was close to the end of 2006. Early 2007, I get a phone call from Talk Radio 702. They said, please come in for an interview. Went in and immediately had my interview, and they said, we like you. You know nothing about radio, nothing. And I said, yes, I don't know anything about radio. But they said, but we're going to train you. We're going to train you. And I did. I started from scratch, call screening. I understood call screening. And I was a call screener for some time. And then they said, but you've got a very interesting voice. You're able to go deep as much as you're able to go. You've actually got a radio voice. Can we take you for just speech? It was like speech training, just so that you learn how to speak.
Yes, how to use your voice for radio.
Use your voice for radio. I said, shut, I'm not doing anything. Use my voice for radio. And I did. And eventually they said to me, look, you like what you're doing. And I mean, I was 20 years old and there were a couple of vacancies that were open at Talk Radio 702. And I was applying for all of those positions. And I remember somebody look at me, one of my colleagues looked at me thinking, this girl is so ambitious. She wants the breakfast show, but she's only 20, 21. And I did. I've always been ambitious.
Yeah, and that time, kind of, who was it? What was doing breakfast at that time?
It was John Robbie.
John Robbie, yes, John Robbie. Yeah. Those are big shoes that you wanted to fit into, right?
I wanted to do the breakfast. I wanted to be the executive producer. 20, no? I was 20 years old. I wanted to be the executive producer of the breakfast show. I wanted the world. I still do, right? I've never changed. Yes. And it was insane. And I mean, I stayed there for some time. And then, funny enough, the person that came up to me was, I think she was ready Tlab, or already Direko, but she was ready Tlab, right, at the time. And she came up to me and she said to me, look, you're so good, but you're ambitious. You're too ambitious for this place. You're in your 20s and you want the world and we can see it, right? How about this? I know a friend of mine who is going into a breakfast show at YFM and his name is Busiso Liope. Have a coffee with him and see if you like each other. If you win, if he likes you, you could be the executive producer of the breakfast show in a youth radio station. You're only 20 years old. You've got like a runway ahead of you, right? And I said, Swoo, who's that? You know?
You didn't know DJ's Boo.
I didn't know any. I didn't. Can I even it was bad. I didn't even know. Can I tell you? It was bad. I remember I wanted to be international relations, a diplomat or an HR manager. I didn't know. I was not part of youth culture, really.
It wasn't your thing.
It wasn't my thing, right? I remember.
Also, you had white friends. You're probably listening to 5FM.
I was listening to Bump. It was my era of Bump. I was listening to Bump and it was like, oots, oots, oots. Yeah, it was just...
Yeah,
I'm about to marry a white man. So it was the time of work and I thought, okay, but then I saw Swoo. I think it was on 3 Talk. Remember 3 Talk?
Okay, yes.
It was 3 Talk at the time, and I saw Swoo, and he had like sunglasses in the studio, and I thought this guy's so cool. You know, I think he was wearing red sunglasses. I thought this guy's so cool, and it's like a big shot. Yeah. And I had this coffee with Swoo, and he looked at me immediately and he said, "I want you to work with me." I don't know, but we're gonna make it. And we did. We created magic. You know, I was the executive producer. I was executive producer / his confidant / his PA. I loved it because I got to learn everything from this man. I was literally his handbag. He'd take me everywhere he would go. You know, and I enjoyed that because he taught me the business of radio. He taught me the business of music. He taught me the business behind what we do. Yes. And that's when I think the entrepreneurship bug bit, because he would like call me to the side and said, I remember he said to me, you cannot be in media and media alone. You cannot be aspiring to be an employee all your life. Have something on the side. Be an entrepreneur. And I was 21 at the time that he told me this. And I was like, I didn't know what he was talking about. He goes, no, I'm going to ask you, what business have you opened up? And you better have opened up a business. That was the first grounding of entrepreneurship. He told me this. He said, you can't be a worker all your life. You're not that. You know, so I really do owe a lot of my perspective shifting to him and to the early stages of radio. But that's, in a weird about way, how it all kind of started.
Yeah. When you look at where you started, right? When you think of those days, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and just wanting the world, as you say. When you listen now, do you ever go back and listen to those radio shows and those first days and see your evolution? Do you see where your sort of trajectory has actually gone?
I struggle to listen to my own voice because I don't know.
No, we all hate it. We all hate it.
I don't like the sound of my voice. Yes. And it's a thing.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
I don't like the sound of my voice.
Yeah.
I don't listen to myself because I don't like it.
Yes.
I don't like it. But I can see how I've evolved as an individual. Mm-hmm. I can see how I've evolved as a South African, mm-hmm. as a broadcaster, as somebody who deeply cares about this country, as an entrepreneur, as a business person, as a principal of an institution, as a founder of an institute. I've evolved and I've grown. And thank goodness, Joburg never swallowed me. Because Joburg
It will
in the entertainment industry,
it will
especially.
chew you and spit you out.
Joburg never swallowed me, and I'm grateful for that. Joburg did not, and there were opportunities. Mac, yo.
Did you just see those moments flashing by?
You know how I know this God?
Yes.
Because Joburg did not. Because I would put myself in positions where Joburg could have swallowed me.
Yes.
Right? And I was young and stupid. I really do. Sometimes when I look back at some of the situations I put myself in as a naive woman, naivety also. Joburg could have swallowed me. Joburg could have had me. But I thank God that I was protected. And more importantly, that I was allowed to find myself in those spaces. And also the exposure that I've been given, from the Yali program where I got to go to America and study at the University of Texas in Austin. And from meeting Barack Obama, I wanted to meet Barack Obama. Not only did I meet Barack Obama, not only did I do that, I gave a speech.
Yes.
I was protected by the head of global security, Brett Bruin. He was actually the head of global security in the White House. I'll never forget his name because for 24 hours he was assigned to me because I was a critical asset at the time of the Yali program because I was about to give a speech for Obama. And at a time, and when you're about to do something with the president, they protect you, so that nothing happens, there's no scandal. So I was that. And so I've had significant shifts in my life that have evolved me as a person, which I'm grateful for. And I'm not naive anymore. I am wiser.
And Joburg hasn't swallowed you?
I thank God for Joburg. Because, wow.
I felt that moment when you went, yo.
No, Joburg had this close.
Yeah.
No, I could have been a statistic, easy, right?
I say, especially to the younger guys in our industry, right? Because a lot of them, for example, might not have listened to YFM when I was on air, right? They were probably still in taxis or they're being transported to school and not listening to YFM or still very young, right? So they might have missed that era and might have missed my 5FM days, right? And you'll get to an event and you're sitting in a room like this and you do let's going through your notes. I feel like the celebrity. The entourage, don't greet you, don't do nothing, don't say anything. So like Mashabela, hey, Kapilo. I'm like, hey, I say have mom. And those that have failed just to come and greet and just say hello and be nice, the industry swallows them up.
Yeah.
And it spits them out. I've seen it time and time and time again, how their lives get totally destroyed because they forgot to be human. Because this industry does not play games, number one, and it's very unforgiving. You're only as good as your last story, or only as good as your last show. That's it.
Yeah.
Now, if you are now looking down on everyone and not seeing them as a simple human being, it will also show you the finger.
Yeah, Joburg will swallow you. And again, it goes back to, and I love your point, that you have to be able to separate the work from the human.
Yes.
I am not my job. I'm not my career. I am not even the institute that I'm founded. If you have to ask me who I am, my name is Nomzamo Faith Mangope. I am Busisiwe Mangope's child. I am the firstborn of 4 children. I have a family. I have love. I was raised by a grandmother with very strong opinions. I am somebody who, if I had to lose it all today, Mac, I know I will get it back and get double because I know who I am. I'm not defined by this. If I lost it all, I could come back and still win because those who walk with me, those who are my ancestors, those who've gone before me are still living around me now. I carry my soldiers. I carry my bloodline. I carry my grandparents and my great-grandparents, the strong women and men in my life. I carry them. So,
because what are we without that?
Thank you.
What are we without our mother's prayers? Because
Right.
rubbish anyway, So tapelo ta mama are probably what I'm surviving, are the fumes that I'm surviving with right now.
but those are your soldiers.
Yes.
And that's how you know, Mac, that even if they to say to you, it's over, you'll come back. And you'll continue to come back. Because those who walk before you and were there before you, they're still with you. And I think that's important for us to understand. So when you're not consumed by this industry or you're not consumed by what you do, you still have a moment of realizing that you're more powerful than what you ever gave yourself credit for.
Was there ever, or I don't know what you'd call it, but was there ever a defining moment for you in your career? Was there ever a story or in an interview that you did that either broke you or that inspired you, or you felt that, I've got to do this, and saw the importance and the relevance of what you do? Take me through that.
Sure, there have been many moments. The beauty about doing what we do is that every single day you've got a chance to fail or succeed. It's like a toss, One day you toss and you want to go home, and then the next day you're back again. I think that being able to do radio and sometimes getting it right and sometimes getting it wrong, it gives you the humility to come back and try it again.
Yes.
It keeps you humble. And you're constantly learning. You're engaging and you're constantly learning. And there have been moments where I've just said, there's no ways I can come back from this. Moments where I thought, why do I do this? Actually, I don't need the criticism. I don't need the criticism. I don't need why do I do this? And I come back again because I'm humble enough to realize that there's still another shot and I get to learn from my previous mistakes. I love learning from my mistakes. I love it. But I think in my life, in terms of the turning point, to be honest with you, was the day I met Barack Obama. And remember, at the time he was president, right? President Obama. And the way that it happened in itself was a miracle. It actually is a miracle. You must remember, the Yali program had about 500. It was. I think maybe it had about 50,000 applicants or something strange like that. 500 young people got chosen from across the African continent to go to this program. Wow. So it's about 6 to 8 weeks that you get to spend in the States, when the States was safe.
Yes.
When you get to say
when there wasn't that orange madman.
Yeah, when the States loved Black people.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and I was one of the 500, and we were distributed across the different universities, and I was in Texas, in Austin. And I mean, I was in media. That was it. I had nuclear physicists. There were politicians. There are young people in the continent are so talented. There were politicians. There were young physicists, nuclear physicists, Listen, it was an array of people. And me, this girl from Lombardy East, close to Tsutsumane, there by the Alex, was there as well. I was like, I made it. Thanks.
Okay.
Okay, I'm here. All right, cool. And I remember that again, Brett Bruin, who was assigned to come to the University of Texas by the White House, came in and he came into the one of my classrooms and he said, I want you, like he pointed at us, 7 of us. And he said, after class, we're going to go into a separate room. And they started asking us questions about our views, our political views, right? I'm a girl from Lombardy East, man. Like, I'm here with nuclear physicists. I was telling my truth. I was just like, no, I don't like this. I don't agree with it. Because I was just like,
Yes.
And at the end, I got called, I think it was a week later, I got called to the international office by my whole international staff. And when I got to the office, the full boardroom, it was a full boardroom of staff members. And I thought, what the hell happened,
What have I done?
What have I done now?
Yes.
And they said, Faith, do you know why you're here? I said, of course not. Am I in trouble? Because I really thought I was in trouble.
Yes.
And they said, no, we got a phone call from the White House. And the president of the United States of America has specifically requested you to give a 2-minute speech about the development of the African continent. You're not going to be stopped. You can say whatever it is that you want to say.
Wow.
And you have got complete carte blanche over it. You're going to deliver it at Town Hall in Washington, D.C., when all of the delegates, including the embassies, are going to be there, and you're going to deliver that speech in front of the world.
What is going on in your mind when you're listening to this?
Can I tell you what I said? I turned around to them and I said, do I get to take a selfie? That's exactly how... No, that was like how the room erupted. Because I'm 20-something. What do you think a 20-something-year-old is concerned about at the time? Can I just, and it was the time of the, it was the time of the selfies, right? I was just like, that's great, thanks. Yeah. But do I get to take the selfie? And they erupted in like laughter and they were like, that's your least of your problems, girl. We just told you the president of the United States wants you to give a speech. And I just said, I just want to be able to prove.
I hear you, but
yes, but like,
selfie guys.
I just want to be able to prove that it happened.
Yes.
Yes. And again, true as it was, I wrote about what I believe, and that speech is available on YouTube. Just click on, Washington Fellowship 2014. You'll see the speech.
Do you remember some of it?
No, not really. I mean, I wrote it down, right?
Yes.
But I do know that we need to be resolved in this fact that Africa is open for business. That was my line. It was Africa's open for business. And I took that from the book of Victor Khomyeswan, who wrote a book called Africa's Open for Business.
Yes.
And I thought, when I read his book, I thought the world needs to know that Africa is indeed open for business. And I got to deliver that at Town Hall. And I loved, and again, it was a defining moment for me.
Yes.
And another defining moment was when you take a seat. So after you deliver the speech, I gave the president a hug. It's again available on YouTube. I gave the president a hug. Gave me like a little kiss on the cheek. Never forget. Sorry, Michelle. Did. Sorry, Michelle. And then I got to sit down. And then when he was close to finish, so he comes up and he gives his speech, right?
Yes.
So when he was about to conclude his, because they've got bodyguards. So one of his bodyguards.
Yeah, it's close protection.
His protection. So he came up to me because I was sitting here, because let's pretend that's the stage, and then we are all this side, right? And I was sitting this side. The stage is this side. His protection came up to me here and said, Faith, I want you to stand up. As soon as the president is done, I need you to stand up because he's going to come straight to you. And I said, why? I'm done giving the speech. He's like, nope. He's looking for you. So
why don't you just listen to instructions?
No, but it's like, why? Because that's what I was there for. Deliver the speech. What more do you want from me? So he said, no, just stand up. As soon as the president, I will cue you. You need to stand. The president's going to come straight to you. I said, okay. So indeed, it happened like that. And I love American, like they just so, they like, there's something about American culture. When they go out, they go all out. They're so hectic. And indeed, the president stepped down from the platform and stood up, came straight to me, gave me another hug, and he said, well done on the speech that you gave, Faith. I cannot wait to introduce you. The President of the United States of America,
Barack
Obama, in 2014, came up to this girl who's not a nuclear physicist, who's got a BA degree. Not that I hate my BA degree, but who's got a BA degree from Wits. Shout out Wits. Came up to me, a girl from Lombardy East, who came from a background that was broken, who got to witness abuse in her home, whose mother used to be beaten up by her stepfather, who was once a time when she relied on food parcels every Wednesday and Sunday so that she can eat, who had to do matric in the dark because we couldn't have money to pay. We didn't have money to pay for electricity, the electricity bill at home, who one day had to borrow money from her best friend, Lindy, 40 Rand, I'll never forget. It was 45 Rand that I asked her for just so that I can put in electricity in the prepaid electricity so that we can have electricity that day. I had to borrow money from her, who time and time again would take our personal loans just so we can save the family from the house being taken by the sheriff. This girl from Lombardy East got to have the President of the United States of America say, I cannot wait to introduce you. How do you not change? How do you not feel like you're created for a bigger purpose? That your life is not selfish, that your purpose is bigger than what you thought. And that for me fundamentally shifted my humanity because I realized that it's not about my ego. It's about what I can do with the affirmation that I've been given. I know I add good in this world. I know I create good in this world. I've been affirmed in the most highest of places, in the most highest of ways. And I can only but take that and not have an ego from it, but do something about it.
You get to sit across many powerful people. You get to sit across people that are responsible for steering this country in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
When you know what you know and see the things that you have seen, do you feel let down? Do you feel disappointed? Or do you feel angry when you find out that people stole 500 million during COVID, that people was supposed to build a road for 40 million and they ran away with 30 million and they bought themselves luxury cars. How do you not lose yourself when you're staring down at these people and these are the people that were actually supposed to liberate our country?
I think I get angry, but what we have to do now is educate the Black majority who were oppressed for over 300 years that they've got the power to put politics in power and power to remove them.
Yes.
I am more urged by us educating a South African. First, we have to educate the Gogo that there is no African National Congress of Nelson Mandela anymore.
No.
It's changed.
Gone.
Okay, so when you go to vote, Gogo, you're not voting for Nelson Mandela. Hasaliu. He's not there anymore, right? Number two, when the political party does not serve you, get them out. Get them out. And put people who are able to serve you. And if those ones don't serve you too, get them out.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
That's the beauty of democracy, is that when they don't serve you as the majority, get them out. But I think we've been so conditioned to be obedient. Obedient. We get conditioned to be obedient that we don't realize we've got the power to put power in place and power to remove power. And I think it's not anger, it's a sense of urgency towards the people that I feel that we need to educate our people because our people have been asleep for a very long time. And while our people are sleeping, Mac, while our people are sleeping, there are people that are lobbying for the Western Cape to be removed as a 9th province of this country.
Sovereignty. Yes.
Right? It's not sovereignty, it's theft. The same way land was stolen when they came onto the shores, when they came off the shores in the Cape of Good Hope. It's theft. We're not lobbying. There are people that are lobbying. There are people that go to the United States and lobby people with money to pump in money to feed right-wing thinking so that they can try to remove this country or remove the Western Cape because it's run by a white DA from this country. Do you know what I'm saying? And we need to be awakened to that. Don't take for granted the lobbying.
Well, we have an Orania that is thriving. We have an Orania that is thriving, right? As well. Right.
Do you know whose fault Orania is? It's the Black government's fault.
Yes.
Orania would not exist if the first order of business as the African National Congress was to dismantle that thing. Orania is not supposed to exist in a democratic dispensation. What does the Constitution say? South Africa belongs to all who live in it, right?
Yes.
Me, Faith, can I go and live in Orania? Because my Constitution, Max, says South Africa belongs to, and it doesn't say South Africa, but. No, it says South Africa. So, but can I as Faith go to Orania and live there because South Africa belongs to all? No, you can't. And I don't blame Afrikaners. Afrikaners are there, or the oppressed, because again, I don't want to be a generalist.
Yes.
There are racist Afrikaners and there are Afrikaners who genuinely want to see the goodness in this country. I've seen them, I've met them, I've dealt with them. They are amazing human beings.
And
in
there are
this
probably
country.
a lot more of them that want to see this country succeed than those that don't.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Right? But there are racists in this country. The racists lobby. The racists still have places like Orania that exist. And it's not the racist fault that the racist wants to preserve their privilege. It's not. It's who they are. They've been indoctrinated.
Yes.
If you look at the teachings of Hendrik Verwoerd, Dr. Hendrik Verwoerd, who was a psychologist who went overseas to study psychology in order for him to oppress the Black majority and also keep the minority in a space of superiority. That is a psychological instrument that Hendrik
Verwoerd did. That's actually what they did.
It's called psychological conditioning. Hendrik Verwoerd used that, right? That's how deep apartheid is. So if you know that, and you have to wonder, why does Orania exist? That means that A, it's breaking the Constitution, right? Because I'm not allowed to live in Orania. I'm not Afrikaans speaking. And number two, the dismantling of Orania was supposed to happen in 1994 already. Why hasn't it been dismantled? In fact, it hasn't been dismantled, it multiplied. What is the other one called? Is it Kleinfontein?
I think it's Lane Fontaine. There's another one.
There's
Yes.
another one in Tshwane.
Yes.
There's another one in Tshwane. Why does it exist? Do you know why it exists? Because the black government made it comfortable for oppressors to maintain and hold up their privilege. That's what happened.
Yes.
Had you not done that, you wouldn't have an Orania. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. In fact, it is an abomination to democracy that there is a white-only place in South Africa. It's an abomination.
It's sickening.
It's just
in this day and age.
And it's not the racist's fault. The racist will be racist.
Yeah.
What do you expect from the racist? For the racist to change? No. It's the black people who made it comfortable for racism in this country to thrive. There shouldn't be a time in our country where racism, if we have to talk about racism, no. But yet we are having conversations like this because what we were supposed to do is attain justice. But instead, we made privilege. We protected white privilege. And I truly believe maybe that's why Chris Hani died. I do believe that's why Chris Hani was taken out. Because Chris Hani believed in justice, not coddling the oppressor. And unfortunately, there were those who wanted to coddle the oppressor instead of giving the black majority justice.
If you know, the biggest abomination that is happening in this country is that there's still prisoners, that are still in prison. That Azanian People's Liberation Army, who had also left this country to come back and liberate it, were taken out of the negotiations because they were going to come back and preach black consciousness. And black consciousness cannot work in a democracy which protects white privilege. It can't. And those guys to this day, the ANC government is still allowing them to rot in jail. And they haven't been forgiven like all of the other prisoners, the MK, were taken out of jail. That's how sick these people are.
And then we ask ourselves, why is it that we're still in a country that we allow for Orania to exist? Why? Let me take it a step further. Those who committed apartheid crimes, why were they never arrested? We had an entire Truth and Reconciliation Commission. In the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, there were dockets that were then devised, right? There were cases that were then filed, right? I think over 200 or so dockets or 300 dockets that were filed. They were ready for prosecution by the National Prosecuting Authority, right? They weren't ready because you were gathering evidence from the families, from the testimonies. That's why we had a TRC. What happened to those documents? What happened to the cases that were supposed to prosecute the oppressors or the instigators of apartheid? Where are the dockets? And the white people do not take away those dockets. Don't tell me that.
Still won't release them.
Why aren't we releasing the dockets that show who were the instigators of apartheid?
Who are those? They are even those that came forth that did not go to the TRC, but gave information that said, I don't want to be in front of the TRC. And they then went back door and spoke about what happened and what they did, right? And those cases are still there.
Why? And I can't blame the racist. The racist is there for self-preservation.
Yes.
You cannot ask the racist to change, okay? It's there for self-preservation. Which black person or black leader sold us out? Who? Which black leader sold us out? So much so that those who killed our parents, our people, the blood that is watered down, the blood that flows in this country is too much. Which black leader saw the blood that flowed and said, I still choose to protect these ones that oppressed us? Who did that?
We'll never know that answer. We will never, ever know that answer because I believe it's the people that are still even in power right now. Right now. Okay, so we're going to do a bit of an ask if you dare type of situation, right? So you can either pass it, you can dodge it. I know you won't dodge it, right?
Nah.
But, you can find a bit of finesse to see how you're going to get around this one. But they're not as hard as you think they are. First question. What's the most dangerous thing a caller said to you on air that you couldn't fully respond in that moment?
The most dangerous thing, I don't think callers I've been grateful. Our callers are just amazing. But I have interviewed at Inkabi. That was fun times. I interviewed an Inkabi and he was like telling me, it was telling me about how they commit the crimes, how much it is, where he gets the gun from, who sends them.
Yes.
I've interviewed people who, are outing, and especially people who, so I'll give you an example. There's still people to this day that I don't understand why they have not been arrested, right? The Special Investigating Unit seizes your Lamborghinis, but you're still walking around free. Why is that? Your blue Lamborghinis, maybe let me be specific then. The Special Investigating Unit seizes your blue Lamborghinis because you decided to be part and parcel of the corruption at Tembisa Hospital that led to many people losing their lives in that hospital and the killing of Babita Diokarana subsequent to that. But you're walking around free. It's nice.
But is it also then a coincidence that the NPA needs to get a proclamation from the president in order for them to investigate and persecute someone, right?
How?
Oh, but if your uncle is the president, okay.
So why is it that others can walk free?
Yes.
Right? So when you start, and I do interrogate and I ask those questions, there have been moments, Mac, where I felt like some of the things I say make me feel unsafe.
Yes.
I do. And I've never admitted it publicly, but there are moments when I do get out of the studio and I do get scared. I do get scared because I tell the truth. It's easy to lie and it's easy to pretend. But when you ask and you interrogate, you do get scared. But I'd rather die telling the truth than have to pretend that there's justice where there is not. So there have been moments where I've been like, okay, now I'm pushing it, where I ask for names. I do. I'm known for wanting to know names. Okay, so who is it?
Yes, give us the name.
Give us the name. And I do, and I leave the studio going, whoa. And that time, Faith doesn't leave the studio, right? Nomzamo comes in, and I go, Nomzamo, what have you just done? Or my mother would phone me, right? There's times when I've had interviews where I would literally leave the studio, and my mother calls me, and she goes, where are you? And I'm going, no, I'm in the studio. She goes, oh, okay, just checking. And then she'll be on the phone with me, just to check that I'm home, right? So there have been moments like this, but again, our work is that. We have to speak about what is not right in this country. It's not okay that the people of Tembisa don't get their services and they don't get optimal medical care. And Babita Diokaran had to be shot in front of her children in her home in a place of safety. And you and your Lamborghinis are still allowed to walk around free. Doesn't make sense.
That's bullshit.
Yeah.
So what's your don't judge me comfort activity? What is it, that little thing that you love doing and you're like, listen, guys, leave me alone. This is me.
Sure. Oh gosh,
You've got to say it. You've got to tell it.
I like watching the Kardashians. I do. I like watching the Kardashians. I do. It's just,
Okay,
do.
That is definitely a don't judge me activity.
It is. No, I do.
You love what?
I do. It's my don't judge me. You know what it is? I don't think. You don't have to think. I get to go, oh, it's a cute bank today, Kim. Like, she's very cute, I do. I do have my don't judge me. I love Bridgerton. I've watched all of Bridgerton, all of it. In fact, you can judge me for that. I watch Bridgerton. I watch Bridgerton when it starts. I watch Bridgerton when it ends. I watch Bridgerton and I do the whole thing. I'm in it. I'm in too deep now.
We can forgive you for Bridgerton. I can shock the Kardashians, right?
I do.
Have you ever felt like you had to shrink yourself, right? Have to shrink your opinion, your tone, or even who you are to fit into a certain platform or audience? And what was that like?
I think shrinking myself at work is something that I will greatly struggle with because it's not my truth. But what I do know is that I've often shrunk myself in relationships. So it's not the career part.
Yes.
The career part, I try to, and I do my best not to betray myself there.
Yes.
But it's taken me a long time to learn that I don't have to shrink myself in a relationship to make somebody feel bigger because they're a small person.
Or for them to be comfortable for that matter.
Yeah, it's not my fault that you are small or that you feel small. It's not my fault that we're not at the same frequency. And for many a times, I've had to carry that as my fault. So sometimes as women, Black women especially, when you are in a space of authority or position of power, when you get home, sometimes you betray yourself or you shrink yourself so that the man standing beside you could feel like a man. It's not my job to make you feel like a man. It's either you're a man or not. And I've had to learn that. Through many breakups, I've had to learn that.
As we do, right?
Through many breakups, I've had to learn that. It's not my fault that you don't feel like a man. And somebody who recognized that in me was my ex-boyfriend's mother. Funny enough.
Okay.
She actually sent me a poem by Marianne Williamson, Our Greatest Fear is Not That We're Inadequate. Our greatest fear is that we're more powerful than what we ever imagined.
Yes.
She sent me that poem because she saw something in me. She realized that I was shrinking myself to fit into a space that I did not belong. She saw it.
Of her own son. That's powerful. Now that for me is true woman leadership.
Yeah.
You know how what boy moms are, right?
Mm-hmm.
Their son is their world.
Mm-hmm.
But for her to be able to see you in that way, even in the space knowing that you're dating her son, that is powerful. And we need mothers like that.
Exactly. And I was like, whoa. And I didn't understand why she was sending me the poem. But I caught it. She said, never ever dim your light to make someone else shine. Don't dim your light to make someone else shine. And I've had to be conscious of that because, Mac, there were times where, you know, when you look back and you go, whoa, you put yourself last. You know, it's enough doing everything that you're doing, but sometimes you put yourself last so that somebody else can feel like they are rising to the occasion. And I learned in my personal life, because I've had to match my personal life with my public life as well.
Yes.
So I've had to, in my personal life, be conscious of the fact that I am enough. I am enough. I am whole. I'm beautiful. I'm wonderful. And the person who is worthy and deserving of me will be with me. And I don't have to break, bend over backwards, steal, or manipulate my way to be with somebody who probably does not know how to hold my light. Not contain it, hold my light.
We could probably go on for another hour, right? Because your story, you know, it doesn't feel like a straight line. It's a conversation with destiny, and that voice just keeps getting louder and louder and louder. Because mark those words from Barack Obama. One day, if not him, somebody else much bigger would introduce you, because that light, it's going to keep on shining. You've been an absolute joy and a pleasure to have us here on Be Frank with Mac. Have an absolutely wonderful day. My day is made, right? So thank you for your voice. Thank you for your thoughtfulness. Keep, you know, calling power to account as you do on your radio show, and don't ever give up, because as difficult as it is for us, a lot of the time it's so easy to walk away. But imagine if we didn't do what we did.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. This has been, wow. I feel like my soul has been poured into this. Don't judge me. Especially for the Kardashian part. Don't judge me. Thank you.
So thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, Faith Mangope, what an absolute star.
Emhlabeni kaJehova subscribe nina futhi nibabi if ubheke le channel for 10 minutes longer and aka subscribe umubi dog. That's why bakuchithela ngoba awuna commitment, unama commitment issues. Subscribe lapho ngeke sizwe